something. Hello, Grandpa. Welcome to the first recording. This is what we hope to save and preserve for Lydia, my kids, and so many other great grandkids of yours, and hopefully more. As we start, we thank you for doing this, and I want to know about your life, and let's start at the very beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Prairie View, Kansas. I mean, on the farm in the country. We live 2 miles east of Prairie View, and Dr. Long was the doctor, and he came to help deliver me. And actually, I might say I had 10 classmates that graduated from high school, and Dr. Long delivered every one of them.
Oh.
And he spoke at our graduation ceremony, and he says, and I remember every one of them. So that was quite unique for him to say that. So,
what year was that?
I was born in 1932, and on September 30, 1932, and I was one of the younger ones in the class. There's probably more than half of them were older than I was by 6 to 7, 8 months older than me. So I was more or less the baby of the family there too.
Yeah, were you the baby of the family at home?
Yes, I was. I had a brother 8 years older than I am, and a sister 4 years older.
What are their names?
My name is. His name was Bartle Jacob, but they always called him Bart. And my sister was Angeline, and they always called her Angie. So.
And then what did they call you?
They call me Rufy, because that's my middle name, Rufus. Yeah.
And what's your first name?
My first name is Hardis. It was actually the name of my grandfather's name, but his name was Gerhardt. But then Grandma says, well, you can't name him Gerhardt. You have to change it a little bit. So she changed the first letter from G to H, and so made Hardis instead of Gerhardus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I started out.
And who are your parents?
My parents' names were Bert, and my mother's name was Dinah. She was a Pockebeer. So, yeah, my father didn't have a middle name. He just had a first name, Bert. Okay. And they called him Bert. Yeah.
Bert.
Yeah.
Bert and Ruf and Bart.
Yeah.
Man. So where your parents? Where were they born? Where were their parents from?
My parents were born here in the United States, but my grandparents, they came from Holland.
Do you know what year they came?
No, I really don't have that written down here either. But
did they come straight to Kansas?
I don't know about the Pockebeers. They maybe did come. I think most of the people immigrated came to Michigan first, and most of them were farmers. So the soil was pretty heavy there, and it rained a lot, so they didn't like muddy feet. So they moved west. Some of them settled in Iowa, but that was still pretty wet, so they moved further west and came to Kansas, and Kansas was dry. So rather than getting along the lowlands, they settled mostly in the hill country, or upland, you'd call it. Mm-hmm. And so that way they didn't have to have boots on or have wet shoes, So, And I think, I'm sure my grandparents wore wooden shoes too.
Yeah.
So, and I suppose that was the custom for most of the Hollanders to do that.
So when I remember you telling the story of going to take care of your grandfather.
Yes.
Which grandfather was that? And
that was
can we hear that story?
Grandpa Soodsma. Yeah, that was Grandpa Soodsma. His name was Jacob. And he lost his wife before I was born even, so I never did know her. But Grandpa was living alone, and he needed more help, and he had one daughter that took care of him, but then she got married, and so then Grandpa was living alone, and he was doing okay, but not 100%. So then my Aunt Kate, that was his daughter, said, "You come and live with me and my family." And they lived in Munster, Indiana. So that was quite a chore for my Aunt Kate. And so my dad, Uncle John and Uncle Pete, Pete and Uncle Kerniel, they had other things to do, and my dad was able to leave the farm for a little time, so he volunteered to help take care of Grandpa in Munster, Indiana, and with my Aunt Kate. So he was, I don't know how old my dad was by that time. He must have been in his 40s or close. Anyway, I was 11 years old, and so they took me along with Grandpa. We rode the train to Chicago, and then Munster was just a suburb of Chicago. So then I got to stay out there, and while I was there, I learned how to ride a bicycle. So, and they had close neighbors there too. One neighbor was Joey, and he had a sister, a little older, but then their mother was a widow too for some reason, and so we kind of got acquainted and played together, you might say. But I remember I learned how to ride the bicycle. So.
Mm-hmm. What do you remember from your grandpa? What was he like?
I don't know too much about his faith, but I'm sure he had a pretty good handle on our Dutch bringing up, and the Reformed faith. And so, yeah. So, getting back to taking care of Grandpa in Munster, Indiana, well, then it came about school time. This was a summertime, and the September rolled around, and I was supposed to go back to school. Well, Grandpa was still living, but he wasn't doing so well, and so we kind of waited a week and then another week, and then he decided, no, Rufus has to go back to school. So they decided I could ride the train back to Prairie View. So,
all by yourself?
All by myself. So they put me on the train, and they called it the Rocket. No, I don't know if it was the Rocket or the Flyer, but it was a passenger train.
Yeah.
And so the porters on the train, they took care of me and all, but I made that trip fine.
You made it fine. Did they give you good food?
Oh yeah. And so that was one of the big things. Well, then when I got home, then they told me that Grandpa had passed away. So
So sometime on your trip.
Yeah. So then my dad came home the next day, I guess, and then they shipped the body back to Prairie View to be buried. And so I was only a day early to going back with my dad.
Yeah.
So, but that worked fine too. So, yeah, everything is timed, I guess. So that was one of the highlights of my boyhood days, I guess.
Yeah. Was that? Wow. Okay. So then I'm sure you got to see all the countryside. The first time going to the city, was that your first time outside of?
While we were there in Munster, I remember going to the zoo one day, and it was I can't remember the name of that zoo. It might have been the Brookfield Zoo or something, but then that was the first time I saw the zoo too. So that was one of the things that was a first.
Was a first, yeah.
So yeah, we. Yeah, and another thing, why they had a sort of like an ice cream shop about a block from where Aunt Kate lived. It was called the Frozen Yogurt.
Oh.
And that was real good. So they let me go there occasionally there with a nickel and buy a yogurt cone,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So.
Did they, I guess you could buy a lot more with a nickel.
Oh, that nickel went a long ways, yeah.
Sticking with your childhood, when growing up, what was it like on the farm? What was it like going to school, working with your family?
Okay.
Was there, what was that like? When did you get a tractor? Those kinds of things, yeah.
Yeah, we lived 2 miles from school. It was 2 miles east of Prairie View, and it was on a pretty main road back then. And we walked to school, walked with my brother and sister, and then a lot of times the bread truck would be going to Prairie View, and he would stop and pick us up. Or the mailman. We had a rural mailman called Paul Kipple, and he would see us coming across the pasture to walk, and he would stop and give us a ride. So they looked after me and my Bart and Ranchi too. So,
What was the name of your school?
It was Prairie View. It was just Prairie View, Kansas school. It had all 12 grades. It had high school and a grade school.
And so, were you and your siblings the first ones in your family to graduate from high school?
Yeah, my sister and my brother and sister both graduated from high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did your parents?
No, they probably had 8 grades. They probably went through the 8th grade. I know they had a country school back where they lived on the fairly close. So they were different schools. But they both went to the same church, so that's where they got together.
Okay. That's where they met.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Youth group or
Yeah.
young people. Okay, so then going to school, did you have a favorite teacher or class that was?
Oh, we had 3 teachers for the first 8 grades. The first, second, and third were one teacher. 4, 5, 6 were another teacher, and then 7 and 8 had one teacher. Yeah, and they were all good teachers. We learned a lot, I'm sure. So,
are you sure, Grant?
Back then, thinking today, they have so much more to learn than we did back then. So we learned our ABCs and our numbers.
Yeah, you learned enough. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Wow. So when you were at home, what were some of the things you had to do on the farm? What was life like?
Well, I remember before I was old enough to milk the cows, we milked by hand, and then I usually had to gather the eggs, and then I'd have to bring the wood in for the stoves, the cook stove and the heating stove. So, yeah, we always cooked on a wood stove. We did have a oil burning stove for a little bit too, but I don't think we used that much. It was so much handier to have the wood hot most of the time, or warm.
Keeps it nice and toasty in August.
Yeah. Right.
And so you, I remember you telling me about when you got a tractor. What was that like?
Yeah, we didn't get a tractor till 1941, and that was then I was 9 years old, I guess. Yeah. So, and it was a B John Deere, and it was 1941. And it was about the last one that came out on rubber tires, because right after that, the war, they couldn't get rubber anymore, and so people bought tractors after that, all had steel wheels. So that kind of puts the date back there.
Yeah.
So, but and I drove the tractor a little bit. I was 9 years old. I didn't do much field work with it, but I could. But I did help mow the hay. We had quite a few acres of alfalfa, and so we had usually went with two mowers. One was a 6 foot and one was a 5 foot mower. We mowed with horses, and so I got to ride one mower, and my dad or my brother Bart would be on the other mower. So, but we'd get a lot mowed with two mowers.
So then you would grow hay for the animals, and
Yeah.
what else? What other things did you guys farm?
We had corn, we had wheat. Wheat was the main thing, and oats.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah. Am I supposed to be talking in here?
No, you're doing good. I checked, and you're coming through loud and clear. So,
that's good.
as long as you keep doing what you're doing.
Oh,
you're
okay.
okay. So you and your house, did you have a telephone, lights, plumbing? What was the progression of your living condition?
As far as I can remember, we always had a telephone, but it was on a rural line, single wire, and there was about 6 or 7 people on that party line, and our number was 2 shorts, and if somebody else had 2 longs, rings, you could crank the phone and make the short or the longs.
Oh,
you cranked it and and they would know who would go on the line, and that know it was their number. But then if you heard somebody else's number,
you just leave it.
You didn't have to answer. But what I've been told, a lot of people would pick up the receiver and listen to.
Got nothing else going on.
Yeah, they'd find out the news, or they would say, "Oh no, I heard this." And then somebody would say, "Oh no, that wasn't right."
Yeah. Chime in when no one.
But people didn't mind. They didn't mind. They kind of knew everybody was going to listen in on your calls too. So,
okay. Yeah. And everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then towards about when I was later on, when I was come home from the Army, I think then we had a 2-wire system instead of a 1-wire system. One was the ground and one was a live one, so that worked a lot better.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what year was that?
Well, I was in the Army from 53 to 55, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I came home from 55, March 55. So I was drafted for 2 years.
For 2 years, yeah. Wow. And that was the Army or
Yes, that was the Army.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some
Were
people,
you a sergeant or a...
some people knew they were going to be drafted, and so they would volunteer for the draft too.
So that was your Uncle Bart, or that was Uncle Bart, right? He
Well, he
volunteered.
was in before for me. He was in and out before I went. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And he was in the which war?
He went to Korea, but there was no war going on then, so
Oh, okay.
there was more occupation. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you blow.
Okay.
And so you come back from the war. There's 2-wire system. What about the bathroom? What was that like?
We didn't have a bathroom in our house. We had the outhouse.
Yeah.
And we had the big wash tubs for taking baths. Yeah.
That was outside?
No, inside.
That was inside. Okay.
But later on, before we had indoor plumbing, well, then I rigged up a 15 or 20 gallon empty oil tank. Was clean, and I installed that high in the air. I mean, high on a stand, so that I could hook a shower underneath, and that sun would heat the water during the summertime. Then during the summertime, I could take a shower out there. So,
wow,
that was quite
and have a little pressure too.
Well, just gravity feed, know.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, when was the fire? Wasn't there a fire at your
Yeah, we had a fire in after I came home from the Army. It must have been 56 or 57. Can't remember which, but yeah, we had a fire in the. It could have been 58 too, but I know it was during harvest time in July, and my brother had a combine, and we cut wheat until it was tough, the dew would get on the wheat and it's too tough to cut, so then we'd stop. So we came home, and then I was sleeping. I had a bedroom. We had a 2-bedroom house, or 2-story house, and the second story was just more of we had 1 or 2 bedrooms up there, and we had other storage space. So I usually slept upstairs, but then it was so hot during the summertime, then I'd sleep downstairs in a bedroom there. So I wasn't upstairs when the fire started. But my mother smelled smoke, or either my mother or my father smelled smoke, and then they said, well, the house is on fire. So we got out, and my dad's going to call for help on the telephone, and the telephone didn't work. So my brother got in the car and went to my Uncle Cornel's house, which is about a half a mile away, and from there he called for help,
Mm-hmm.
There was no fire department, but then when they send out the alarm on the telephone, then everybody knows it's an alarm, better listen,
Yeah.
So then after that, the neighbors came over to help put out the fire, but then the fire started in the attic, or in the second floor there, and we don't know how or why, but it must have been spontaneous combustion. But so we threw a few buckets of water up there, but that didn't do any good. So we knew, we can't stop it now. So then we started hauling furniture out, and clothes, and everything what we thought was good. And the first thing my mother hauled out was her family Bible. So, and that that touched a lot of them people that were helping there. So, but in the meantime, we had built a shop on the farm where my brother did mechanic work. So we cleaned out part of that shop, and then we hauled our beds in there, and we slept in there. So, and she did her cooking in there too. So, but the neighbors were also good to us too. So they came to help, and then even after the fire, there's a couple neighbors who'd come and help clean up. So
Yeah. But, did they help you rebuild?
Somewhat, yeah, they did. We did hire a couple carpenters, and then I helped the carpenters, and they and there's a few neighbors that came and helped a day or two when they could. But yeah, these carpenters, we didn't have electricity, so they had sawed all the wood by hand. No skill saws or anything.
Yeah,
but it worked. And there were two German from Stuttgart. They were Germans, and they were good carpenters. They built the cabinets for the kitchen, and
wow,
yeah,
all by hand.
Yeah.
Okay, and so when they rebuilt the house, did they put electricity in? When did they first?
We did. We put
did.
electricity in, and then we and it wasn't long. Then we got REA, that's Rural Electric,
Okay.
And then we did get the power lines came right past our farm on both sides, but we could not get hooked on because they didn't let us, I guess, or it wasn't custom or what, but then Rural Electric came on, and then every farmer got it, so then they had to let us on too.
So how old were you when you had electricity in your house the first time? After you came back from the war, or from the army, right?
Well, no, it was, yeah, I think we had electricity before I came back.
Oh, okay.
I'm not quite so sure on all these dates, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I'm just curious.
I know it's, yeah.
So, your family Bible, do you have any idea where that is? Or could you describe what it looks like?
I do not know. I do not know if it probably wore out or something, too, that they replaced it. But I don't know. I don't know where that's at.
So was it an English Bible or a Dutch Bible?
Yeah, it was English.
It was English.
It might have been a Dutch Bible too. I shouldn't say that either. So
okay. And your mom was born where? You said it before we started recording.
Oh.
I think that's a cool story.
She was born in a sod house on the farm, about I would say 2 miles east and a mile north of Prairie View, and then about a half a mile east, that was a Pockabeer farm. So that's where she was born. So
destined to be a Soodsma, eh?
Yeah, she was a Pockabeer.
Yeah, Soodsmas are the men of the sod.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start reading some of the questions from here. So the first one is, what was considered dessert during your childhood?
Well, we had a lot of Jell-O and pudding and canned fruit. Mother canned fruit, yeah.
What kind of fruit?
Peaches, and cherries, and apricots, and whatever you could buy in town, you buy it by the bushel or whatever, and you can part of it,
And then eat the others as
yeah.
part of your meal. So did you have any fruit trees on your farm?
We had, I know, one apple tree, yeah. And for a lot of years, that tree did not have apples on. But then later on, we pruned that tree, pruned it pretty good, and from then on, it had apples on. So.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So so would your mom home make the Jell-O from what you guys?
I think we bought it in the store. Yeah.
Bought it in the store. Okay.
Yeah.
And how far was the store from your house?
Well, 2 miles.
2 miles.
Yeah.
You probably didn't go very often.
No. Well, what we did, we raised chickens, and we had more eggs than we could eat, so we sold eggs, or actually we traded eggs for groceries too. So
at the store.
yeah, so that your eggs are worth so much, and then you'd have, buy so many groceries or
with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what they say, money is just an IOU to somebody. So you have an egg, then you get an IOU.
Yeah, you're right.
So the next question is, how many kids were in your class?
Well, I graduated with 10 in my high school class. But along the way, we had maybe one or two more at a time that were, actually, I can't say we had 10 in our class because when we got to high school, then some of these country schools sent their kids to high school in Prairie View. So we ended up with 10, and once in a while we'd have 12 maybe, but they kind of moved on or whatever. But
yeah, pastor's kid going through town. And then did you ever get in trouble with your teacher? What kind of a student?
No, I can't say that I did. I think back then we all kind of knew what the rules were, and we thought we better abide by the rules.
You did what you were told to do.
Yeah, right.
What kind of things would you do with your friends? What were the games to play at recess or the pastimes?
Well, we played a lot of softball. We had everybody played softball, but earlier on, we'd have swings, and that's about the only playground equipment we had. And they had these we called giant strides, which was a pole with a wheel on top with chains hanging down with a hoop, and you could go round and round on that
So then you'd hang on.
Yeah, and then go round and
around.
round. Yeah, it was a little bit dangerous, but it was. I didn't care too much about that. And the merry-go-rounds, we had merry-go-rounds too, but I didn't. I did some, but you get dizzy going around them things too.
Lose your lunch.
Yeah, and then if it goes too fast going around, you don't want to jump off either.
Yeah, it might hurt something else.
Yeah.
What were your siblings like growing up? There's the question about what your siblings were like and what were your fond memories with them?
Well, we played games together, I guess. We played horseshoes. We had a lot of horseshoes playing.
In your yard at home?
Yeah, and then my sister, she learned how to play the piano from who I don't remember. But then in high school, she played the violin. So, but I don't think my brother Bart ever touched the piano or had an instrument either, and I didn't either, really. So,
were you guys? Was there a lot of time for fun growing up, or was it mostly?
Oh,
chores?
Yeah. We had a pony. We rode the horse around too, I guess.
Oh yeah. Was that what you took to school? Sometimes?
Yeah. Sometimes yeah.
Were they your Uncle Bart, or my Uncle Bart, your brother Bart? What was he like? Personality as an older brother? Did he take you under his wing, or was he always busy?
Well, I think we got along good together, but he was all business, not too much play. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And what church did he go to?
We went to the Luctor.
He went to Luctor.
Christian Reformed Church.
All the way. Did he always go to Luctor?
Yes,
he did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where we grew up in the church there. So, yeah.
And how many? How many kids were in your Sunday school or catechism? What was that like?
I don't remember the number. I know we had probably, I would guess, 5 or 6. And I think they split the boys from the girls too in them days too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I remember. Nowadays they'd have boys and girls together, but I don't think we ever did. So.
Okay. Wow. Do you remember who your catechism teachers were?
Well, it was usually the elders of our church. I remember one particular one was a good teacher, and that was John Teen. T-I-E-N. Teen. Yeah.
Does he still have family members in your?
He had one son in my age group. He was 5 days younger than I was.
Yeah.
So we were always together. And then we had a couple older ones in our class. And I could remember. And then some of them people that were in my class, they migrated to Washington State because, the farming was not always profitable there and they couldn't make a living on it, so they would move away. And
start over.
Yeah, and there's more work there for them to do, and they could get started over there too. So
yeah,
you can't blame them. There's quite a number of families that moved away. So.
Yeah. Well, the 30s. That was during the Great Depression, right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Of course, the dust storm days, I don't remember them. I know they told me about them.
Yeah, what'd they tell you?
Well, they the dust was so bad, you couldn't keep it out of the houses and either. But they just had to deal with it, So,
and your family was farming during the
yeah, we were farming, yeah, and I know my mother said one year we only got a half a hayrack load of alfalfa for that year. It was dust storm days, yeah. And then they'd buy hay from Iowa. It would come shipped in from Iowa. We trucked in, I guess, and it was very poor hay.
And probably expensive too.
Yeah, I suppose it was too. But they never complained, I guess, about that either.
Okay, so you don't really remember the Great Depression days, but do you remember what life was like on stateside during World War II? You talked about the tractor.
Yeah. Yeah, during World War II, we collected iron and we collected rubber. And we had, in Prairie View, they had a big mountain pile of tires and stuff that were no good, but they were going to ship them recycle them for rubber and for iron also, and that would be shipped out on the trains,
So I guess they're probably making a whole bunch of military vehicles and things like that. And would they?
Yeah, there's a few years they didn't make our vehicles or cars.
Oh, okay.
Or tractors either, I guess.
It was all towards the war.
Yeah.
And so your dad, he didn't have to. He was older than the age to go to the.
Yeah, he fell in between my Uncle Cornel, Soodsma. He was, 3 years older than my dad, and he went to World War I.
Really?
And so between World War I and World War II, then they didn't have a draft or anything, so, or I guess you could volunteer, but my dad never volunteered either, so, or my Uncle John either was younger.
Oh, okay. So what's the order of your dad's brothers then?
Uncle Cornel was the oldest. My dad was Bert. Bert was second. And then I think Uncle Pete, he lives in Iowa.
Yeah.
He moved to Hull, Iowa. he was next, and then my Uncle John. And he was the youngest of the sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
So did they ever, your Uncle Kurt, did he ever mention or talk about what World War I was like?
My Uncle Cornel.
Or Cornel?
Yeah, Uncle Cornel. He was in World War I, and I guess he was over in Germany too. But there was the Asian flu, or I forget if it's called Asian flu. Spanish flu that came through, and everybody was getting the flu, and the first sergeant, the man that was helping the first sergeant, he got the flu. So they put my Uncle Cornel to help the first sergeant. And Uncle Cornel said, I slept in his bed, and I never caught the flu. And Uncle Cornel said he never did catch the flu. I mean, he was immune to it, I guess, because all his life he didn't have the flu.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That was one thing that he told me about.
From World War I.
Yeah, he told me that. So, yeah.
So you grew up and your uncles were farming next to you.
Yeah.
What was it like when you would get together with your cousins? What was that like?
Well, I had a cousin, Donald. He lived 2 years, well, almost 3 years older than I was. But then he and I played together. And then they had, Uncle Cornel had a Jacob too. And my Bart's name was Jacob.
Oh, okay.
So they were, them
Two
older ones got together and played together. But Donald and I was the ones that played together, So.
And would you go fishing? Would you?
We did some of that, yeah, but not much. No.
Yeah. No burning down barns or riding cows.
No.
And so, would you see much of them? Was it like Sundays
well,
at church?
they were only probably half a mile apart, So we walked across one quite often. He would come to play at my place, and I'd go to play at his place.
Yeah, and you probably went to school together too.
Yeah, we went to school together. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So
that would be a lot of fun. Go to school with a cousin.
Yeah, we would walk together. They were a little closer to school than we were, but
oh, they didn't get as much exercise then.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your mom like? How would you describe her?
I think she was I think she was a likable person. She made us toe the line, you might say.
Yeah.
There's no getting around if we had orders to do something. Why, we knew we better do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't do something, well then, yeah, my dad would have to give me the spanking, or she'd have him do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't hardly get any spanking. Maybe one or two that I can remember. I don't quite remember them, but yeah. But that was good for me too.
Yeah. You turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
So was she? What was she like? Was she energetic? Was she helping you with homework? Was she always cooking?
No,
what was her?
No, she really didn't help too much with homework. Well, she knew her numbers and alphabet, but she had to learn English because she grew up with the Dutch parents,
Oh, okay.
and she learned the Dutch, and she remembers going to catechism, and they would be in English. And
Catechism would be.
And she didn't quite understand it, and then some of the other kids would say, tell her in Dutch what it was. Oh, then she knew the answer. But she learned the English later on. And,
Okay. So she went to school in Prairie View too?
No, she went to the country school. There was a country school close to Luchter Church, and that's where she went to church. Went to school.
And went to church, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my dad had a country school south of where we lived, a couple miles. And of course, his home place was a couple miles south of where we lived too. So that he had a country school also.
He had a country school
Yeah.
too. So you didn't go to a country school. You
No.
went to the town school.
No, we had town school.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that's cool. And what was your dad like? How would you describe him?
My dad was, I thought, easygoing. You know,
Yeah.
he was always out to, might say, better himself. You know, I remember him taking me to these farm auctions a lot of times when I was too young. I mean, young enough that I didn't have to go to school, and he'd take me to auctions. And sometimes he would, buy a bargain, see it was a bargain. Well, that's the kind of thing he would do. So, and yeah, I remember one time, well, that was later on. It must have been in the 45, 46, no, probably 48 or 49. And we went to an auction, and they were selling a big truck, and for some reason my dad bought it. I guess the price was right. So brought that home. Well, we did a little trucking for the neighbors too, but that was, I guess he thought, well, maybe we can make it pay.
yeah, make it an investment instead of a. So, so what was your relationship with your dad like?
Oh, we had a good relationship. Yeah, we got along good. And then, I don't know. I can't remember ever having a big disagreement with him. No. I mean,
What did you like to do with him even when you were older? What was something you enjoyed doing with your parents?
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed being with him. Yeah. He was a good father. Yeah. So.
Would you say you're a lot like your dad? Would you say you're like were you like
Well,
your dad as a father?
Well, I can't see my dad. See myself that way. I suppose I am. I imagine. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, they always say.
Yeah. Well, I know my dad is randomly buying trucks at auctions, so
He maybe inherited it from me or my dad.
Yeah. It's a Soodsma side thing.
Yeah.
Not a vent tag. Okay. Well, we've gotten through the first few on this page.
Turn it
So
over.
there is a question here. What was the hardest part about moving out on your own, and how old were you when you left home?
Well, I left home when I was drafted in the Army in 53, and that was the first time I was really away from home, so I don't know, you know that you have to go through it, but yeah, I always look forward to letters from home, my mother would write probably close to every week, I would say. So,
And they would go to you in Germany.
Yeah, there too. So yeah.
Was it hard to learn to cook, or did you have to do any of your own cooking when you moved out?
I did not quite a bit, but I did some cooking at home too with my mother. So it's yeah, I kind of got the job of helping, I guess, too. But
the youngest, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Grandpa.
Yeah.
Well, we've got. I'm going to get rid of this paper right now. So this one is from Daniel. I guess this would assume that you are probably living in Sioux Falls at this part of your life, but this is more about your courting and getting to know Grandma. So this is, I think it's right. It says pre-marriage. It's the second or third box on the one on your right.
I see.
What drew you to Grandma? What made your eyes twinkle when you saw Grandma at church?
Yeah, that I can't answer really. I can tell you how we met and everything, and
Just gonna move this back a little.
am I not on camera?
No, you are. I'm just. There you go.
Yeah, I was dating another girl, and I wasn't too happy with that relationship, so that I kind of broke that off. And well, my cousin introduced her to me, and then, but they weren't really a Christian family, so I knew. Yeah, so I knew that wasn't going to work. So then I broke that off, and then when we had Harlan Rulofs as our minister, then Harlan Rulof's wife was a sister to Joe, my wife, and she was the younger sister of Joe. And so she came to visit in Kansas then, and so at that time my cousin was dating another girl, Margie. It was Alfred and Margie, and Margie says, well, you want to go bowling with us? Well, Joe says, I'd like to go bowling, but I don't want to go by myself. You find a partner for me. Okay, well, then they thought of me, I guess, and asked me if I wanted to go bowling. So, yeah, I was willing to do that. And so that was the first time and then she was there for a couple of weeks, I guess. And then the next Sunday, I think, there was a program in the Prairie View Church. And so I said, well, you want to go to the program? And she agreed she'd go with me. So then, and then we went, and then I don't know how we got to talking about, well, would you care, start dating? And then she said, well, yeah, but I'm older than you are. And I said, well, how much older? Well, she was 2 years older than I was. So I said, well, that's not so bad. I said, usually the men die earlier than the women, and they usually did at that time of the time in the history,
Yeah.
So, well, she agreed to that too. So then, I guess we agreed to start letter writing together. So she would write me, and I'd write her, and we exchanged letters for I don't know how long, 6 months or more, and then. Yeah, and she would come out once in a while too again. So that really started the ball rolling, I'd say.
Yeah. And so did she get to meet your dad?
No.
She never knew your dad?
No. It was after my dad died in 1956.
1956. And
we got married in 1959. So that was 3 years there later.
So you met her in 1956, which means you were 24.
Well, I probably met her in 57 or 58. 7 or 58, probably, yeah.
Okay. But, so then when your dad died.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, that was kind of a turning point, too, in my life, because we knew he was sick. We knew he had cancer. And at that time, the doctor said, well, don't tell him, And my mother agreed with that. We're not going to tell him that he's got cancer. But he knew it himself. And then he said, well, he asked her straight out, and my mother said, yes, you do, So he knew it, and we knew it.
Yeah.
So it didn't last too long. He died in 50. Do I have it down? I don't know. I think, he died in 1956.
Mm-hmm. And how he was, how old?
He was 62.
He was 62.
Yeah.
And how you were 24.
Yeah, right. So then after that, he had a will made out, and the farm would go to Bart and me, and so we'd have to pay Angeline a third of the price of the farm,
Oh, okay.
So she had no say into keeping it, so we had to buy her out, so we did. And then, we farmed together until I got married.
So like 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years, close
Okay.
to 3 years,
Okay, so one of the questions here was, so 3 years of farming. So Grandma didn't want to be a farmer.
Well, she wasn't a farmer, but she did have chickens. That was her thing, to have the chickens.
Oh,
Yeah. So, and she did okay with them too. Of course, we helped her too. But, yeah. But she had a way of keeping track of all the money. Like, she'd go to bring the eggs to the town and get the money for it, and then she would keep the money, and she would tithe on that money. And she was pretty accurate. Did a good job of keeping up with her tithe too.
Yeah.
So she.
yeah. So then, I guess you went on a bowling date with Grandma.
Oh yeah.
That was how did you ask Grandma out the first time? You didn't really get to.
Yeah.
This is from Daniel. How did you know Grandma was the woman you wanted to marry?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I guess
you can be romantic. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess when you have a desire in your heart, I think, well, about time I get married, and you feel, well, this is probably the best one for me, and it was. So
yeah, how do you know she was the best one for you?
Well, I didn't know that, but
yeah,
it turned out that way.
Yeah, it turned out that. Hindsight is always great.
Yeah.
So the same question, or the next same person, Daniel asked, how did you propose to Grandma?
That I don't remember. I think there came a time when you had to either fish or cut bait, Yeah. So I think we knew the time was there, and so I'm sure I don't remember the words I used either, but
probably something along the lines.
I think we both agreed it was time to get married.
Yeah. So after you met her, by the time you were writing letters together, and then wedding day, how long of a time was that, do you think? From first time meeting to honeymoon?
I would say probably close to 2 years, probably. Yeah.
2 years.
She was teaching school.
She was in Orange City?
She was teaching in Orange City, and she was living with Harlan and Cynthia, her sister, boarding at their house, and so yeah, that's what happened, I guess. And then, but she had been teaching school at different places for 10 years already, so
she'd been hopping.
Yeah, hopping Orange City and Leota, and she was in Minnesota, and Iowa. Not Rock Valley, but
Rock Rapids.
no, where Aunt Jo was from.
It's okay. You can't remember how you proposed.
She taught and I think she was. Well, she went to summer schools in Calvin.
Oh, okay.
But then, after you went to summer school for one summer, then these countries or these Christian schools would hire you too. Mm-hmm. So that's where she got hired right away too, and so she'd teach about a couple, 2-3 years in one school, and some other school would want her, and they'd.
Yeah. So she was a very independent.
Yeah, I mean, she could choose where she wanted to go. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
10 years. That's a long time. So Sarah's wondering what your wedding text was, or your passage for your wedding.
I looked that up too, and I think if I remember right, it was.
I think it's under marriage.
This one? No.
Psalm 127.
Oh yeah, Psalm 127. Yeah.
Do you have that one memorized?
Not really, but unless the Lord builds the house, the workmen labor in vain. Yeah. Mm. So.
And is that true?
Pardon?
Can you testify to that being true?
Oh yes, yeah, that's true. Very true. Yeah. And my brother-in-law, or he ended up being my brother-in-law, married us.
Oh yeah,
Harlan Rulofs. Yeah. So they were all looking out for me, I guess.
Yeah. So it wasn't an arranged marriage. That's good. Yeah. What was something that was challenging about marriage that you're thankful for today? That's from Daniel.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I really can't pinpoint anything really down that's the most challenging. It's what you have in your heart, what you want out of a marriage. You have to, you have to work at it too. I mean, say you have that first things first, you might say. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So.
And what did you? You can if you're going to say more, you can say.
No.
You got married, and were honeymoons or anything like that a thing back then?
We didn't have a honeymoon because at the time I had moved. We knew we were going to be living in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because Joe had applied for a teaching job in Long Island, Kansas. And
go ahead.
And so the principal said, "Yeah, I would like to hire you, but I cannot hire you unless you got a certificate, for a full certificate, So that meant if you're going to teach, you better go back to school and get your certificate. So then, where are you going to go back to school? She'd been to Sioux Falls College. She'd been to Augustana College in Sioux Falls. And she thought, well, I can finish up and get my degree in Augustana. So that meant, well, we better live in Sioux Falls. So then I went to Sioux Falls, and I boarded with a family of the Sioux Falls church there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. And so I was looking around for a house, and everything that was for rent was trash, you might say.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, well, what's next? Buy a house, I guess. So I went to the realtor, and of course he showed me a few houses. He says, well, there's 3 things you have to look for when you buy a house. Oh, what are them? Well, first is location, and the second is location, and the third is location. So he showed me houses that were close to the college, and so we landed on one, I think 3 blocks from Augustana and about 4 blocks from Sioux Falls College. So that was the one, and the price back then, it was $11,000 for a house, and it had a GI loan on it at 4.5% interest,
which is probably very good for
and
that time.
at that time it was very good. So, and it didn't take very much money down, so we thought, well, we better buy that one. So
Wow.
I did, and yeah, but it ended up she didn't go to Augustana College. She went to Sioux Falls College.
So you're only 4 blocks.
Yeah, it was still walking distance. Yeah, so, but yeah, and it was, yeah, as the Lord provides. So I was working on construction, and had a fairly good job, and well, the house would be done, and they didn't have another house to build, and so they let me go, and I'd go to another contractor and get work there for a couple weeks, and something else had happened. And then a cement contractor, he needed help, so then I started working for him, and I worked for him maybe a year or 2, but anyway, my neighbor living next to us, he was a rural letter carrier, mailman, and he said, boy, you better go to the post office, because they're giving the test, the civil service test. He said, it's too cold to carry mail in this kind of weather.
Yeah.
So actually I took that as good information, and I took the test, and it wasn't long. Well, at the time Kennedy was president.
What year was that?
It must have been in 61 or 60 or 61. I'm not sure. But anyway, he told the post office, you're paying too much overtime. You've got to hire more help. So that's why after so many men took the test, well, then they hired more people. And they hired me then too. So, so I was working for this cement contractor, and he was paying me $2 an hour. And usually, minimum wage is $1, I think.
Wow, so again, double minimum wage.
But the post office, it was paying $2.10 an hour. So I told the boss, I said, well, I got this offer from the post office for $2.10 an hour. He said, well, I could raise you, but he says, I can't keep up with the post office. So you just, he saw the handwriting on the wall. He said, I can't keep up with that. He says, so I said, well, then I guess I better go to the post office. So I did. Mm-hmm. So then I carried mail for, I'm going to say 7 years.
In Sioux Falls?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was 6. But anyway, I was a sub. And, of course, you know what a sub's like. You do everything. You take whatever route's available, and you go early in the morning to unload trucks, and you go in the evening to make the rounds collecting them. The drop boxes. And so, yeah, I would work, a couple hours in the morning, maybe carry mail in the afternoon, or during the day for about 6 hours, and then I'd go in the evening to run the collection route for an hour or 2, maybe probably 2. So,
so So then, when would you go to work and when would you come home from work?
Well, that varied quite a bit too. Usually, yeah, if you got a route, had to carry a route, you'd be going in at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, and then 8 hours. So, yeah.
And then, but if you're a sub, what time do you go?
Well, yeah, then you're on your own. I mean, you'd still, if I'd carry a route, I'd still have to do the collection route in the evening. So,
okay.
So, yeah, it worked out. Joe put up with me doing that. So, and we had one car, so that worked good too.
So you would walk to work, or would you?
No, I'd drive to work. Yeah,
okay.
it was 4 or 5. Well, not miles. It was probably 6 or 8 blocks to work.
Okay. Yeah. In the city too.
Yeah.
So then, what about becoming a parent? What was it like becoming a father, and how has that journey been?
That was very exciting.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
How did you find out? Was it a surprise? Was it?
Well, I can't say it was a surprise. No.
No. Yeah.
When Ruth was born, we expected it, and Joel was born, we expected that, and but when the twins were born, Stuart and Stephen, then we didn't know that they were going to be twins, and the doctor didn't know that.
Oh.
And the nurse, when she'd go in for a checkup, she suspected it, but she didn't say anything, and so when they were born, they were there, Well, the nurse says, so I thought maybe she told the doctor too, but they must only heard one heartbeat or whatever. They couldn't tell it. So, but it was a surprise for both of us too.
Yeah. And so you go home and you start building another crib.
Yeah. Yeah, we had borrowed a 6-month or 3-month crib, I guess, from friends. And then when that was after Ruth was born, so then I built a crib out of I think 2 or 3 table leaves, cut them up, and I made a 3-month-old crib. And so that worked. And then when the twins come, well, then we had to borrow that other crib back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was all part of the growing up, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So, how many of your kids were born in Sioux Falls?
4. Yeah. Yeah, Jason was born in Denver.
Jason was born in Denver.
Yeah.
So. Okay. And so, do you remember any of the process, when you're having this baby? Do you think it's a girl or a boy, or do you have names picked out?
We didn't know. We didn't know at all.
No.
That nowadays they want to know or
right
something.
Away.
Yeah. No, we didn't even care to know, I guess, either. But we.
And choosing names, was that something that?
Yeah, we'd kind of picked out names, I guess, too. We had a big long list of names there.
Yeah.
You probably went through that too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. Wow. And so, in Auntie Ruth, my dad, the other kids, are there any names that were family names? Because sounds like Jake.
Yeah.
Was a family name, but are there other names that are Soodsma family names or Van Dyke names?
No, I don't think so. No. We had some names picked out, I guess, but then when the twins came, well, then we had to go back to the drawing board again. And I know Uncle Hank mentioned to Mom, that was her brother, and says, well, Stuart's a nice name.
Yeah.
And my mom took that to heart, I guess, too. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Wow. So, how did your faith affect your parenting? That's from Daniel.
Oh, Well, I think it had everything to do with it. Yeah, we yeah, love has a keeps you in sync, I guess. But yeah, yeah, being we both grew up in Christian homes, we had a lot of, shall we say, items to follow. I mean, we we had good teachers. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, Joe had grandma, and her dad was good too. But and they were musical family too. Cynthia played the piano, and Mom played the piano, and her dad played the piano, or I guess it was a pipe organ back then, or
Mm-hmm.
where they learned maybe from their dad. I don't know. That could be. But and then, yeah, our other sisters played the piano too. But they're quite musical. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you get to see your kids now.
Yeah.
And they have their own children.
Yeah.
What are you proud of, or most proud of your kids right now, as you see them as a father?
Yeah.
You held them when they were
Yeah.
very small.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say proud, but I am very proud of them, I guess you might say. But of course, they all following the Lord. They're doing doing the thing that means the most. That's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm proud of all of them. That's
Yeah.
the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, I can see why you are. This is a question. I think it's from Daniel, because he has all the other questions in there. How do you approach discipline as a parent? How would you discipline your kids, or what would that look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Sometimes you just comes an end to talking, and then you have to spank, But I don't believe I ever spanked too often. Joe didn't believe in spanking either, so
Yeah.
we did. After our older kids were out of the house, and Jason was the youngest one in the family home yet, and then we took in a couple boys that were, the mother worked, and she had needed babysitters part of the time, so they would stay at our house quite often. And yeah, they were kind of ones that I did spank, and and the mother says, yeah, and I want you to. So I mean, she agreed that was okay, and they knew that too. So
They did. Wow.
yeah. But yeah, we didn't have too much problem with them. So.
With your kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any funny stories that you remember from parenting? Things that finding clothes in the toilet, or any funny stories?
Not really. I don't. I don't remember too much of them doing things that were a no-no. I can't really bring up anything that was memorable. Usually we built a playhouse or something in the backyard. We did that in Denver anyway.
Yeah.
They had a lot of fun with that too.
Mm-hmm.
And we played a lot of games together too. But
what kind of games?
board games usually.
Yeah. Who was usually the best? Who would win?
I can't really say. Well, yeah, I'd let them win once in a while too to keep them interested, I suppose. But wow, that was when they were real young. But yeah. But,
and did you go to a lot of soccer games? And
we didn't play soccer until I think Jason got in high school. But we had baseball, Little League baseball in Denver, and Joel was playing, started baseball there, Little League. And I coached for a couple years, and then, but it was a pretty good, Little League was pretty good back then. They had never played baseball on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that was one of the rules. So.
Yeah.
But now I see they're playing. They might have games on Sunday. I don't know, but I know they did practices on Sunday. Yeah. We never practiced on Sunday either. But there's always time at evenings, long evenings. We'd have an hour or two practice.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And so, how old were your kids? How old does Little League go for? How old do you have to be to play?
I don't remember, but they were first grade or second grade, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know how old they go nowadays. I can't really say.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so this question comes from Katie.
Okay.
And this is, what is the best part of being a grandpa?
Well, I guess watching your grandkids grow up. Yeah. Best part would be knowing that my job is over and it's a parent's job now instead of the grandparents' job.
Yeah. Well, I know you made a lot of trips to Canada. Is that because you really like to see the mountains, or is the...
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah. So watching... each of your this is from Grace. In each of your grandkids, what is one thing you admire about each of them?
Oh, yeah. Well, I suppose their good looks.
Yeah.
Their demeanor, or whatever it is. Demeanor. Yeah.
Oh, their good looks.
Yeah.
Where do you think your grandkids get their good looks from, Grandpa?
Oh, that I don't know.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to say yourself.
Well, yeah, they all got it from me, I'm sure.
Okay. So you're married, you have grandkids, you have kids, you have grandkids, and you retire. Can you talk us or tell us about being retired in Denver, and then why you moved to Kansas? And
okay.
Because
yeah,
what I remember
Yeah.
is only you living in Kansas. I don't remember Denver.
You don't?
No,
Oh,
and so I don't remember what life was like for
Yeah.
you there, or
Okay.
why you guys moved to Kansas.
Yeah.
So if you could share with us that would be awesome.
Well, I started out in Sioux Falls, and then I got a transfer to Denver, to Aurora, Colorado. That's where they took in transfers. So that's where I put in my 18 years in the post office. And then I had 2 years of Army time. So 18 and 2 is 20. And then you had to have 20 years to retire from the post office with a full retirement.
Oh, okay.
The longer you stay, the better the retirement. So at the time, Yeah, I thought, well, I kind of like to do handyman work, and so I thought if I take my retirement, I can practically live off of that. But if I do handyman work, then I can build up my social security, which I didn't have enough time in Social Security because the post office didn't pay Social Security at that time. So, but they do now. But anyway, I didn't have my 20 quarters or whatever it took to get retirement then. So I thought, well, if I do handyman work on my own, I could build up my Social Security so I could draw that too. So I needed just a little bit of time more for Social Security to be in on the Social Security. So I started doing handyman work. I started painting mostly outside, or painting inside and outside both, but mostly the neighborhood. They needed houses painted.
So it's just friends you knew, or
yeah,
did you advertise?
Neighborhood, yeah. So I started painting, and well, it just kind of mushroomed, So neighbors would tell somebody else, and they would call me, and and then I was busy painting, and then once in a while, this one lady had quite a few rentals, and she had me doing remodeling work in the kitchens and stuff like that. So, and I had learned how to sweat joints for copper, and
okay.
So then I did but some of that too. And then this one lady that had all the rentals, she would tear out the kitchen, or have me tear out the kitchen, put in a new kitchen. So I would help her do that, and then I had another fellow in our church that I could call on once in a while if I needed help. So he would help me, and I had an electrician friend that did all my electrical work. So I kept him pretty busy doing electrical work, and it all worked out fine.
How many years did you do that?
I did it for 10 years before we moved to Kansas.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And did you, I guess you probably had a business. Did you sell the business, or was it just you told everyone?
I didn't sell it, but I kind of handed it off to another man in the first church that was doing stuff like that. And I said, well, you can I gave him names of who you could call,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he did. He took them, and he kind of filled in for me after I was gone. So, yeah. Yeah, it was a good life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of liked handyman work, but now it's past. I can't do it anymore.
So, when you moved to Phillipsburg, you were 100% retired.
Right.
And how did you guys look for a house there and buy it, and then decide, it's time to retire and move? Or how did the whole buying a house in a different state and everything go?
Well, Stuart and Steve had been living in Michigan with Harlan and Synth Rulofs, and it was time for them to move on and get away from there. So they decided, I should either move to Michigan so they could live with us, or move them back to Denver. So then I thought, well, moving to Michigan didn't seem like the best way to go. So I looked around for a job for them, and went to Medigold Dairy, where they make yogurt and stuff and bottle stuff. And so I got them a job there, or they hired him there. And I put in a good word for them, and they got hired.
Yeah.
And they worked there probably close to 10 years too. So,
And that's in Denver?
Yeah,
in
Denver. So then they had extra money to And meantime, we were kind of looking to move to Kansas, and so we looked around and we saw one module there that was a foreclosure, and we thought, well, maybe this would be a good place for the boys to live, Stuart and Steve to live. So it was foreclosure, and so they put a bid on it, and we got it. So then we had to remodel that. It had all plastic plumbing, and it was all froze up, So we had to did all the plumbing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it was a good house, good module. So then no more and got it ready to live in, and then somebody wanted to rent it, so they rented it to a doctor. And they lived there, I don't know, probably 8 years or 10 years, but that was a good rental. And then they had more money to spend, and then there was a duplex for sale in Phillipsburg.
I remember you showed me that one.
Yeah, and so that we thought was a good buy, so they bought that one too. And so that didn't need any work either right away, but then once one renter moved out, well, then we redid a lot of, some of the kitchen floor and stuff, Not a whole lot, but some, And they rented that for, I don't know, 8 or, I'm not sure how many years, but then later on, the one renter moved out again, and one side was vacant. And so the guy that came around looking, he said, I would like to buy it. So, okay. Put a price on it, and I guess they sold it for almost the same as what they paid for it. But it was good to get away from it. It needed a lot of work. And so, But the one side that was rented first when we were there, that man is still living in that side.
Really? And how many years has that been?
Oh, we've been there 20, and it was, I would say, at least 25 years or 30.
Renting in the same place.
But yeah.
So the house that I remember you living in, Grandpa's house, did you buy that before you moved to?
Yeah, we did. We had bought it a couple years before, and then the owner there wanted to rent it for a few more months after he sold it. And so we rented to him, and then he moved out, and then somebody else wanted to rent it, so we rented to them. So I think we rented that for 3 years, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. So anyway, but then after they moved out, or when we moved back, well, then we had to do a lot of remodeling. Yeah, and we did. So
kept you busy.
Yeah, kept me busy. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and then that gets you to Phillipsburg.
Now we're in Phillipsburg. Yeah.
And I know what happened last summer when you had to move.
Oh, okay.
The garage sales.
Yeah, right.
So, what was it like returning back to your hometown?
Oh, that was good. Yeah. We went back to our Luctor church, and that was. Well, we knew we were going to be in that church anyway, but
But
we got along. I mean, it went fine. Yeah,
it went fine. Was it a little strange? Like you're coming back to a place that you spent so many years of your life in, but you also spent a lot of time. Not there. Did you feel like you were the new people again, or?
Well, there's quite a few new ones, and the ones that were, 40 years old or 40 years old were just little kids when I left, and so they had grown up and had families too already. So, it was quite a change in the people. But we didn't have any problem. Mom volunteered to play the organ, and she got into that. And she started a neighborhood Bible study in Phillipsburg, and that's still going.
Really?
Yeah. And what else did she do? Well, yeah, she was in ladies' aid, ladies' meetings, but yeah. And
Well.
she taught a lot of summer school too there too, vacation Bible school and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kept pretty busy. I think she was pretty happy moving back there.
Yeah. So was living in the city, did you get to know your neighbors? Like, was it a strong community there as well in Denver?
Yeah, we did get to meet the neighbors on our street and a few on the other streets. We did that with the boys had a paper route. They delivered the the Denver Post.
Yeah.
And that way we got to meet a lot of the neighbors too. And when they got bigger, then we shoveled snow for them, or got a snow blower and blew snow for them. And we got around the neighborhood pretty good that way.
Yeah, cutting the grass.
Just about everybody knew us. We didn't know everybody, but
yeah.
But that worked good. So, and when I was doing handyman work, the first year I don't think I got about 3 or 4 blocks from home. So.
Really? So you walk home to?
Well, no, but I could have.
Yeah. So when you retired, was Uncle Jason still at home, or had he already gone to university?
He was still in school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was.
And then
after he went to Dort, I think. Yeah.
I think he was in the 90s, right? He went to Dort in 91.
That I'm not sure. I guess you're probably right.
Something like that, because I remember one of our professors said they went to school with him.
Oh, okay.
So, Grandpa,
yep,
we are going to pause right now. I'm going to start a new recording video.
Okay.
This one's already very long.
Okay.
And then the next one we're going to talk about your so it's testimonial. When would you say your relationship with Christ began or became your own, and you made it your decision to follow God? And then Thomas questions. And then so there's a whole bunch in there. And then a final message to the next generation. 30 minutes. And then if there's time, we'll try to do some that are all about Grandma's life growing up.
Okay.
Just kind of like what you did at the beginning.
Okay.
Just